Welcome back, everyone. Dirch here, and I wanted to do another video about some things we learned during the deep dive state of play and what we just seen so far in Borderlands. And the one I wanted to talk about today is Pearlescence. There was a ton of talk leading up to the Border 4 announcements, Borderlands 4, not Border 4. Learn to talk Dirch. And there's a lot of push that we need more rarities because in Borderlands 3 we just got the white, green, purple, blue, and legendary. And all the games before that we did get additional rarities, and people really enjoy these. So that's something that they are pushing for in Borderlands 4. And at launch we're not going to get it, but that to me is fine. I want more rarities, but I never expected to get them at launch because if you look back through the history of Borderlands games, we never have got them at launch. Doesn't mean they couldn't add them at launch and improve things from the past. And that would be cool. I would be happy to see that, but I wouldn't expect that because, again, we haven't had them before. Now, the other part of rarities is what should they be? And I'll get into that, but before I get into that, I want to talk about why we know we're not getting them. We saw the weapons inventory screen and the UI of that screen, which not a lot of people loved. And within that screen, we saw these different guns with blue and purple and green rarities. And we saw some other inventory. And on all of those, they had these series of four triangles. The greens had one triangle, the blues had two, the purples had three, and we're assuming the legendaries are going to have four, but there's no space for a fifth one for an additional rarity. So that's why we're pretty positive we're going to be locked in at four rarities. Now, that does not mean during DLCs they couldn't add another triangle, make that thing a little longer, and give us more rarities. And I hope we do get that. But on launch, not happening. Now, the next part to this is what should pearls be? Um, Pearls are so cool in Borderlands 2 because it was the additional rarity. You could get hybrids with them, and they were good. That's a key indicator. Then we got Borderlands 2, and before we got pearls, we got seraphs, and seraphs were pretty cool. Um, Not all of them, but most of them were pretty good, and a lot of them were easy to get because you could just buy them out of a vendor. So as long as you could kill a raid boss and get crystals, you go to a vendor and buy seraphs. And again, a lot of the seraphs, even in the first batches, the Tatler is one of the best SMGs DPS wise. Um, the Evolution was a good shield. And then we got the Torx campaign. At that point, the Hoplite was really cool. Had scaling issues later. But then also like the Big Boom Blaster was cool. You had a lot of like impactful stuff. Hammerlocks comes out, and obviously we get the Interfacer, the highest DPS shotgun in the game at that time, and I think by end game it still was. Um, so yeah, a lot of like really good impactful guns. The Hawkeye really like changed rating and helped with a lot of things. So a lot of very good impactful Seraph guns, but Seraph guns were essentially legendaries with a different loot source. And then we got Pearls with the UVHM pack, and we got awesome Seraphs later in the DLC 4, but that came after UVHM. Um, the first batch of pearls came out, and it was really cool. We got pearls. You got them from Tubby's and UVHM after level 61, uh, which, okay, they have their own kind of loot source. But they they were largely meh. The Butcher is very cool, and I love that, but like the conference call and the interface are both out DPS'd it. Now I prefer the Butcher to those guns, and some people, did DPS calculations without calculating the Butcher's one, and it's kind of like a lot of people were dogging on it because of that for a long time, but then people fell in love with it later. Now the Butcher's beloved, but at first it was not. The sawball is really cool, but it's kind of limited use because of the range effect, and not a ton of people use the sawbar, even though, again, I love the sawbar. The Wanderlust, like outside of some niche builds with Gauge, it was hot garbage. Um, the Unforgiven, as much as I like want to love that gun, and I've tried using it as much as possible, and kind of like I have had some fun with it. It's not very good. We can be honest. So the first batch of pearls, again, they weren't any functionally different than legendaries. The Storm 2, they were just legendaries that weren't that great for the large part. And then we got the second round, and then you could get the first round more reliable from oh my god, what the hell? But the second batch wasn't really any better. And that really hurt too. And they were really hard to get because you could only get them from Tubbies, and it was a big loot pool. The Becca was really the only good one. Um, I think Carnage had some uses and stuff, but largely, again, they weren't very great. Um, and functionally, again, they are all same as legendaries. You would essentially take a purple gun and then add a special effect and then balance its stats to make up for that effect. And the balancing was poor. They just weren't very good game or very good guns, and that really, really killed the pearls. And then we got Effervescence, another new rarity, and they were cool. Now, the pre-sequel did rarity the best in my mind because the glitch rarity was actually interesting because it had a different effect. You got some stat boosts, I think mainly in mag size, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I played with glitch guns, but glitch guns were cool because they had that glitch effect to them. It made the guns different, and it wasn't just a purple gun with this effects the same as legendaries. They were different. They were their own unique thing, and that's what additional rarities should be. So that brings us to Borderlands 4 because we didn't really get any extra rarities with BL3. What should pearls be? Because if pearls are just the same as legendaries with a different loot source and a color, that's lame. It's not cool. It's not interesting. It's not any different. It's just like, hey, we're going to call this something different, but it's functionally the same thing. That's not good enough to me. So in Borderlands 4, we have this new licensed part system. And I think this has a lot of opportunity to make pearls cool again and make them effective again. So I've said this to a few people in different like Twitch chats. I commented this in a Moxie video the other day, but I thought I'd just make a video and talk about like my ideas if they do add pearls or any other rarity. Is you make another dash, you add in that triangle, and what this does is it opens up one more accessory slot on the guns. And instead of making different pearl guns like we've seen in the past, if you every time you kill a boss, you have a 1 in 10 chance of getting a legendary, make it like 1 in 100 chances of getting a legendary with a pearl slot on it. And that pearl slot is just another accessory. And let's say you have 5 pearl accessories, and you could always add more if you wanted. So you get a super rare chance because pearls should be super rare. They should be a chase of that legendary dropping as a pearl. And this is almost like a pseudo hybrid. And what it would be is you would have different effects, kind of like the licensed gun manufacturing effects, that would turn something into a pearl. And maybe they could take those from old pearls. The easy one to think of is the Butcher. You could give any gun the Butcher ammo regen effect. And that could be an accessory. And if, let's say, the Unkept Herald comes back in Borderlands 4 for some reason, you could get a Butcher Unkept Herald. Or a Butcher Hellfire, or whatever guns, a Butcher Hellwalker. Yeah, any of these guns that could come back or new guns that we would have, the whatever, the badassery 3.0. But you could have different effects, and it'd be cool if they would like base them on those. Like you could have a Godfinger one that the further the bullet goes, you get extra bullets spawning to get extra damage. You could have the Becca effect, where you would get the Becca split on any gun. Different things like that. Maybe the Orion effect somehow. That would be complicated, but that'd be cool. And just take like previous pearls that people liked. The saw bar might be a little too weird and complicated to make work. But you can make it maybe homing, like the Wanderlust, or whatever. But I think this would be an interesting way to make pearls. It would be a bitch to farm because you want to farm that legendary, the right parts, with the right accessory and all that. But that's, I don't know, that's part of the chase for pearls to me. Um, and if the gun system is like Borderlands 3 with the licensed parts on top of it, base parts were a lot more solid and consistent in Borderlands 3, so they weren't as crucial as it was in Borderlands 2 because the matching grip bonus was the kind of the bane of that game that made farming bad. And there's other things, but yeah, if those guns are more consistent, and then you just get that pearl part and the gun's good, then you have a badass gun. Could you have a better god tier roll? Sure, but the gun could still be really good. So that's my big hope with Borderlands 4 for Pearlescence is we could get, yeah, that licensed pearlescent part, essentially. The same thing we are for guns, but that part would just be badass and cool and hopefully based on a previous pearlescence. That way we got some of that nostalgia baked in, but it's like different. I mean, again, the butcher concept to me is so fucking cool. And it could be really broken too, but if a gun's that rare, like, okay, so it's broken, cool. I've also heard someone pitch the idea, and I really like this. Like, if you make those pearls just super powerful by having, again, like the Butcher effect on Hellfire or whatever, or, Unkept Herald or whatever gun it is, some of those guns could just be so powerful with that. Make it so you can only equip one pearl at a time. So that way it's not like, okay, pearls are in the game, they're super broken, now your load up's nothing but pearls. Make it so you can only have one pearl equipped at a time. And if you want to open your menu and change those pearls, like that's just going to slow down your gameplay and not be great. So you really kind of like focus in on like building your build around that one pearl. Then you have other like supplemental guns that work well. I don't think that's a bad idea. And I think that could be a kind of a cool way to make pearls interesting, rare, hard to find, and impactful. Because that's the key. It should be a hunt. They should be different. Um, and they should be good. And we haven't always had that in the Borderlands series, and yet we still love pearls and we still want them. But I want them to be worth it, and I want them not to be the same thing. And I know I'm just repeating that, but to me that's just hugely important. So um, maybe if Gearbox hasn't, I know they've probably started in on some DLCs, but maybe they haven't got around to the Pearl stuff first. Maybe we can help affect or impact their decisions on how they implement pearls. And I don't know. I think this is a cool idea. Let me know what you guys think. If you disagree, if you hate it, let me know. If you have a different idea, let me know. I know a lot of people talk about like lock parts and stuff. And yeah, I get that, but if the gun system's more like Borderlands 3 with the licensed parts on top, I don't think that's that big of a deal. Just make sure all the parts are kind of good but different. So, anyways, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And once again, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.